In the tunnel.
In the tunnel.
In the tunnel. You're listening to In the Tunnel.
Hello and welcome to In the Tunnel, episode number 107.
Remember when I used to be able to make puns on the spot for the numbers? Can't do that with like three numbers.
Yeah.
Like 107 just doesn't have anything to rhyme with. It's just hard enough to say the three words.
Yeah. All right, so we're going to look at some trades today. Um
Overdue, but that's what we do. It's like last week tonight, but like
last
3
month.
weeks too late. Yeah, last month happened now.
Yep.
Um, yeah, actually makes more sense for our show name, but we're what, 5 years in, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Um
So yeah, you want to take this one or should I?
yeah, so Brooklyn gets rid of Irving. Uh
Yeah,
in this trade it's to Dallas, right? So to Dallas gets Irving and Morris. Brooklyn gets Dinwiddie, Finley Smith,
Dinwiddie.
Din
You know,
Dinwiddie.
let me just take it. Let me just take it.
I mean,
All
I'm
right.
trying to read fast and I just didn't see the I dot.
Well, you also said Finley, so
Yeah.
all right. So Brooklyn got rid of, as Sean said, got rid of the biggest cancer that they could have.
Yep.
Kyrie Irving decided that it was his time to go because instead of being a good Samaritan and just taking his lashings in terms of what the Nets wanted him to do after the cryptic tweet and all that stuff. Uh, as soon as he was back on the team and the Nets were actually playing the best basketball that they had really played in the
Yeah.
time that Durant and Irving have been together, Kyrie said, "Well, I know a bad thing when I see it," and said, "Fuck the good thing." He demanded a trade. Demanding a trade when you're at the best spot that you've been at in 3 years is certainly an interesting narrative, but I guess that's something he couldn't look past. So, um, and it needs to be said that the Nets owner is the real hero in this deal because Kyrie only wanted to go to the Lakers. And so Joe Tsai, the Nets owner, said to the GM, trade him anywhere but the Lakers, which I think is a move that more teams should do.
Yep.
You know, I think that there's so much leverage for the players in the league that it's like, well, you don't want to be here. There's 29 other areas that you could go to, and I think if you don't have a no trade contract, I should be able to
Do whatever I
choose
want.
wherever you go.
Yep.
And so I think Kyrie had a limited no trade, but it was like he wasn't going to go to the Lakers
Same
anyway.
thing.
So yeah, he ended up waiving it to go there. Um, Dallas gets Markeith Morris too. That's just a throw in for the cap space. Brooklyn gets back Spencer Dinwiddie, who I think is a native of the Brooklyn area, if not spent a large amount of time as part of growing up in that area.
Okay.
They get Dorian Finney-Smith. They get a 29 first-round pick and two future second-round picks. Now, I will say what stands out to me here is we just got to 2023, and to accept a trade where the most important trade asset that you have, I guess, is 6 years away is a lot. I mean, like when Chris Paul got traded to the Suns from the Thunder, like I'm pretty sure the Suns traded away like a 2021 first round pick in 2020, and that was for a 36-year-old player. So for Kyrie to uh, be worth that little to have to defer on drafts for the next 5 years is certainly an interesting thing.
I mean,
Um,
when you look at like his outer image based on whatever's been going on in the general eye and how little he ended up playing until fairly recently, I would say his prospectus was pretty low comparatively to what it should have been or could
yes,
have been.
his value turned into an elite player to an elite player who we need to get off of our hands
Yeah,
because it's not the problem of the player he is, it's everything that comes with it.
it's the baggage.
It's also the fact that the baggage seems to be everywhere he's gone.
Yeah,
He didn't like the people in Boston, so even though he said he was going to resign in Boston, he didn't. When he was with the Cavs, he didn't like being second fiddle to
yeah.
LeBron,
Okay,
rightfully
you
so.
remember
And
he said he didn't like being second fiddle to LeBron and the Cavs, but he wants
yes,
to go to LA where he would not be. He would basically be second fiddle.
second. He'd be second fiddle, and if Anthony Davis was ever healthy, he would have been third. Although the rumor is the Lakers would have given up on Anthony Davis to get Kyrie. So,
Still second
which
fiddle.
is still second fiddle. It also doesn't solve anything for the Lakers
Yeah.
because they were going to get rid of Russell Westbrook anyway too.
Hmm.
So, essentially, the Lakers would punt on a big man combination for a big man, small man combination, and then fill in the pieces with again what.
Yeah.
Um,
True.
so it was an interesting way that the Lakers wanted to do it, and Kyrie wanted to do it, but nobody was really seeing how it was going to work long term. Um, but that wasn't really the only move that Brooklyn made. Although I will say that in regards to Kyrie, I mean, we know he was a guy, not a native, but grew up in New Jersey after being born in Australia. Uh, this guy came to the net saying that this was his childhood dream. And I get that when you get to the NBA, the fandom kind of runs out.
Yeah.
You're not really a fan anymore. But, like, for a guy who claimed that he wanted to be there and claimed that this was his childhood coming true, he did everything in his power for 3 years to not play.
Yep. I know. That's the other
He
thing. It's like,
he had the audacity to say, "It's not my fault New York says I have to be vaccinated to play basketball. So there's nothing I can do." Well, I mean, what did the rest of the world do so that they could live a normal life? They got vaccinated. To say that you couldn't do anything is ridiculous. Um, and to this day, he still is playing the victim, despite the fact that he literally had the right to choose any and everything he did.
yeah.
Oh, the Nets community in the front office treated me poorly. After you tweeted something that was controversial,
Literally pissed them
all
all
you had
off.
to do was not tweet it. Like, we all have choices to make in life,
Like,
and
I
you
mean,
decided to not make them.
also, like, I really think that if your image matters so much to your worth, like, just especially if you have as much money as these top tier basketball and other sports figures do, hire someone to vet everything you say.
Exactly. And let's not also forget that Kanye West said that he could say anything he wanted and Adidas wouldn't do anything, and Adidas dropped him immediately.
Yeah.
And not a week after that, after Kanye, one of the people he mentioned as being the same controversial people was Kyrie Irving.
Yep.
And Kyrie Irving could not separate himself from the news and just keep hush. He decided to play it up, do something controversial like 48 hours later,
Yep.
and was, I guess, thought like he was still entitled to everything they had built. Now, not to take away everything he built, but like, what did you think was going to happen? You thought Nike wasn't going to drop you? Of course, Nike dropped you.
Yep.
Like,
What the heck is that?
Everybody has decisions to make in life, and those who don't make the right decisions have to face consequences. Those who choose not to do anything. If I saw two homeless people fighting in the street, and one of them pulled out a gun, and I did nothing about it, then the consequence is I have to feel guilty with knowing that I didn't,
Yeah,
say anything or report anything. I didn't have to get in the line of fire, but I probably should have called the police.
yeah,
Like, we all have to live with the decisions that we make. And even doing nothing sometimes is the wrong thing.
yep. All right. And they got two future second round picks. Do we even know when they will be?
I can look that up. Bear with me a second while I do that.
Yeah.
Kyrie
And again,
Irving.
Morris is just kind of there.
Yeah, I mean, look, both of the Morris brothers have played for just a plethora of teams
Mm-hmm.
at this point in time. So, like, neither one of them is more than a role player. The second round picks 2027 and 2029.
Yeah. Okay, those are worthless. I mean,
Well,
2027 is
they're second round picks. They're worthless to begin with.
yeah, but like 4 years isn't the worst. But like 6 years, come on.
4 years for a second round pick is the worst. If you can't get rid of second round picks now, how fucked up are your draft assets that you're like, oh, we have to hold on to this? Like, we
But it's
can't
not that
really
it
let
it
go of this
it
money.
shows the worth of Irving more than anything else.
Right, but does Kyrie Irving give a shit?
No,
No, he got what he wanted. He
well,
doesn't give a
not
fuck if
really.
that
He
second
just
round
he
pick.
he he got to Dallas.
That second round pick could become the best thing that ever happened to basketball, and Kyrie Irving would not give a shit.
Yo.
Now, I will say also, and I don't want to rant too long about this guy, but he is a free agent at the end of the year, which is probably one of the reasons why a lot of teams wanted him. Because
Mm-hmm.
as we said earlier, this guy takes drama everywhere. And the fact that he's a free agent after this year means he won't be in Dallas long enough to spark the world on fire. And if he does, it's Dallas. And it's like his beliefs at this point in time probably more aligned with a more conservative landscape anyway. Um, at least, he won't be hated by the local community as much. He'll still be hated, but like, that's more the reach of the game than it is the local community.
All right, and the other Nets trade. So, I mean, it was like a four-team deal or something, right?
So straight up.
Oh, it was straight up. Didn't they? There were talks about it involving more. Oh, they
There was
flipped. Flipped later. Things happened. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so yeah, Kevin Durant comes to my Suns. It's an interesting move because also we have to mention TJ Warren, who was originally drafted by the Suns, who's making a solid 1 million this year, is now back.
Yep.
Um, Jake Crowder hasn't played for us all season because he's a 32-year-old man who believed he was owed an extension despite being able to make $10 million this year. Was owed an extension despite the fact he's nowhere near a star caliber player. He's probably somewhere on that line of 6 man or starter, like
Okay.
very
Fair.
fringe. Um, and and Cam Johnson was going to start this year over Jay Crowder anyway. Um, so he felt insulted by that, decided he wasn't going to show up. Mikal Bridges was the third option on the team, sometimes the fourth behind Booker, then Paul, then Aiton. But when a lot of injuries happened, they wanted Bridges to step up. And the reason why this trade happened now and not over the summer was the Suns didn't want to get rid of Bridges.
Yep.
They were going to get rid of everything else but Bridges. The Suns had a new owner, and 12 hours into his tenure as the owner, said, "Get it done." Um, so they offered up Bridges, and with that comes Cam Johnson. Um, to Nets fans, Bridges and Johnson are affectionately known as the twins because they're like best friends. So in my heart, I'm happy that they got traded together. This is an interesting one because now, Phoenix was in a good spot because they owned all their first round picks,
Now they
basically
don't.
going forward. Now they don't. And look, Kevin Durant is a top 15 all around player of all time.
Yeah.
But what what's interesting here is Phoenix at its height was in the 2021 finals and last year is at its height because of the overall team chemistry and because everybody knew their role really well.
Hmm.
What you do now here is you risk the chemistry aspect going away for a brighter future, but you do it in the hands of a guy who's 34 years old and he does have leg injury issues.
Yeah.
Um, the flip side of that is it's widely known in the NBA that uh, if there's any team, historically speaking, at least over the past 20 years, that's had the best training staff, it is the Suns. Um, they were able to keep Steve Nash playing on a nightly basis, and he basically had a broken back
Yeah.
and was laying on the sideline doing exercises every time he came out of the game. So, my hope here as a Suns fan is the intertwining of the best training staff and the willingness to want to win a championship is going to be enough to do that. But the reality of the situation is the bench is now weaker, and it wasn't that strong this year to begin
Fair.
with. So
I
yeah,
mean, do you
it's
think
a lot
that?
to get rid of.
So do you think that like trading those three players, were Crowder, Bridges, and Johnson, plus the four first round picks, do you think that
Um,
like it hurts the future more than you want it to, or
yes and no, because there's two sides of this as well. Because Chris Paul is 37, 38 years old, and I think they're looking to probably move on from him after this season because I think only the first 2 years of his extension was with the Suns was guaranteed.
okay,
Um, so they'll be on the hook for less if they're able to move him. And also, Chris Paul, he's shown this year to not kind of be the same player. His longevity was the reason why he got a 4 year extension after the 2021 season.
okay,
Um, but should they move on from Chris Paul, if they, regardless of if they take on most of the salary or not, Phoenix now with Devin Booker, DeAndre Ayton, and Kevin Durant for the next, I think, 3 years is probably the most appealing destination for free agents to go.
okay,
Uh,
fair,
so the question is, what tier free agents are going to take less than the maximum to go to Phoenix? And I think you can get solid. I won't say A tier, but you'll get some solid B tier, above average players who
okay,
will want to win a championship.
okay,
Yeah, you don't have really draft picks here, but the thing is about first round draft picks is once they get to year 4 or 5, once they get to their option years, the pay scale drastically changes in the
yep,
NBA. So you're looking at a guy who, with a first round pick, probably makes, I'm going to guess here, $5 to $10 million in the first 2 to 3 years, average, but that can jump to like 15, 20,
yep,
with options. So really, the Suns won't have room for these guys. They're rental players if they keep the picks because if they don't pick up Durant, they have Booker on a super max. They matched Aiton's max, and they have Chris Paul on 30 million a year. So
okay, yeah, I would,
and they had Bridges on 30 million a year too, or just short of that.
okay,
So yeah. It's an interesting trade. It really only pays off if the Suns win one.
Fair, and Brooklyn is, in whatever shape they are in anyway.
Yeah, it's a league of big threes. A lot of teams have big threes. It's just the tiers of them right now.
Yeah.
So it's like,
All right.
especially the West. Yeah, let's talk. There were a lot of trades, but not a lot of big trades. Um, you want to take the last one, or I feel like I've been talking a lot here.
Yeah. So I mean, you have the Lakers. They get D'Angelo Russell, Beasley, and Vanderbilt.
Yeah, Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley go to the Lakers.
Yeah. You have the Jazz who get Russell Westbrook. Uh,
One
y-
Toscano Anderson.
Thank you, Damian Jones, and a 27 first round pick from the Lakers. And then you have the Timberwolves that get Mike Connolly. Uh,
Mhm. Nikhil Alexander Walker.
Thanks. 24 Lakers second round pick and the 25 and 26 second round pick from the Jazz.
Yeah. So
I
this
mean,
is
you know that they're getting rid of. I mean, it's kind of known that they were going to get rid of Westbrook
Mhm.
here. So, um, you have a three-team trade. I think it was kind of expected,
Yeah,
but
I think
at the
what
same
was
time, I'm like, well, okay, well, what does this kind of do, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I don't see it, at least immediately.
So I think for Lakers fans and what the Lakers front office probably hoped for that, because we knew that Westbrook was going to be a trade chip somewhere. We knew that they only had the 2027 and 2029 first round picks
Yep.
to play with in terms of trade assets, really, those three things. And we've known, as we've spoken on in prior episodes, about how the Lakers thought that really with that package, they could just get about anybody that they want,
Mm-hmm.
which it turns out really not worth exactly what they thought.
Nope.
Because to get rid of Russell Westbrook meant getting rid of one of the first round picks. Um,
Yeah.
because just teams didn't want to take Westbrook on. And even now, what Russell Westbrook has been bought out from the Jets.
Yeah.
Um, so D'Angelo Russell, who was drafted by the Lakers, comes back, and he's fine. He's a fine player
But I mean,
who,
like, you go from the Lakers being like, well, Russell Westbrook's an asset to, in reality, right? You have a team that takes a first round pick to basically hold on this contract and then buys him out and just takes the penalty.
because what's Russell Westbrook worth to them?
Yeah,
They're supposed
it's
to be in a
literally
rebuild
nothing.
anyway.
Yeah.
Like the Jazz are already in playoff shape, and they're supposed to be rebuilding anyway. They got a shit ton of picks for Rudy Gobert. They got a shit ton of picks for Donovan Mitchell, and they just got another first round pick from the Lakers. And
Yeah.
like the sad thing is, for a rebuilding team, all the trade chips that they got back, they're winning.
Yeah.
So like they're only going to get stronger. But the thing is like the Lakers, I'll admit, overall, in terms of the overall lineup with bench, like roster wise, gets deeper, but like there's nothing there that's a real differentiator from the times where they made the playoffs, like in 2021, and then just couldn't do anything with it. There's nothing that this team, like Jared Vanderbilt, I guess, is a good player. He's
Okay.
not going to make or
Yeah.
break anybody's playoff run.
Uh-huh.
Malik Beasley is a good player.
Yeah.
Not going to do it. And D'Angelo Russell is capable enough of being a starter, but when push comes to shove, he's proven to be inconsistent enough to probably not be able to handle, being the third option on a team. So
Yeah. I would agree.
I don't, I don't know where this leaves the Lakers. They picked up Mo Bamba for Patrick Beverly, which is like, Mo Bamba was a top 5 pick, but if the Magic are getting rid of him for one player and no picks, then that says a lot about the player. Um,
Fair.
yeah, the Jazz clearly win this. The Timberwolves are in a weird spot because, like the Jazz, they're now in the Mike Conley experiment. Who Mike Conley's now past his prime, and like the Timberwolves are in a spot where they have Anthony Edwards, they have Rudy Gobert, they have Carl Anthony Towns. In theory, they should be winning. So to be parting with players is an interesting move, but you do get second round picks back and
But they're worthless.
they're worthless. But again, like I said with the Suns, what are they going to do with first round picks?
Fair.
They
I agree.
they they have Towns, Gobert,
Yeah.
and eventually they're go on big contracts. Eventually they're going to have to give Anthony Edwards. It was, I think, in his third year a big contract. So, eventually they're not going to have money to play with.
True.
So that's where you fill out the roster with second round pick.
Okay.
That leaves us with the buyouts. So right before we recorded this Monday night, the 20th, we know Patrick Beverly has decided after his buyout with Orlando that he is going home to Chicago because Lonzo Ball can't move his arms. And that's not a joke. He's injured, and apparently they're going to shut him down because he isn't able to. Or, I don't know if it's arms or legs, but I think I read he's unable to make lateral movements right
Ooh.
now, which is very important in the game of basketball.
Yeah.
So uh, I don't know if Beverly's going to start there, but uh, he's going to for sure get minutes. Um, Kevin Love signed with the Heat earlier today after being bought out from the Cavaliers, um, which was really a nice move because the Cavaliers decided not to really play Kevin Love anymore. Reggie Jackson was the first domino to fall on the buyout market. He pretty much signed with the Nuggets immediately after he was traded from the Clippers to Charlotte and then bought out. Um, Terrence Ross, kudos to him. The guy spent the last 7 years in Orlando. So just a fucking long time to spend in Orlando, given that Dwight Howard era Orlando Magic had been long gone by then. I think the highest that Orlando ever was an 8 seed. So he served his time. They wanted him to go, chase some wins. He was going to go to the Mavericks until Monty Williams and James, or not Monty Williams, GM James Jones and the new Suns owner, who, as I said earlier, has been on the job less than a week, started
Yeah.
making personal phone calls to Terrence Ross, and they were able to convince him to, come to Phoenix, which I think, adds a lot of value to the bench. Russell Westbrook signed with the Clippers earlier today. John Wall, who was on a 2-year deal with the Clippers and said that the Rockets were trash, uh, was traded back to the Rockets. He is being bought out. We don't know where he's going to go yet. Serge Ibaka was bought out from the Bucks, and Will Barton was bought out by the Wizards. So those are the big names that are left on the buyout market. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, all the names we expected.
yeah.
All right.
You know the buyout market because if you follow trades closely enough and you see, oh, this contending team or this out of the loop team just traded a player to a team that's nowhere near contending.
Yeah, but like
Like if you know players going to Charlotte,
I feel
then
like
there's a good chance they're not staying.
but I feel like the buyout market is really only a thing in the NBA.
Mhm.
At least
Because that's the only league where the teams have enough money to play with it.
yeah.
Like the NHL, a buyout would work, but I mean, right
Nobody's
now,
going to sack
the,
the like twice the length unless they have to.
right, like the NBA, a buyout is, a good way to get rid of a player that's not part of your future. In the NHL, the salary cap is low enough to where a player can't take up more than 18% of the cap. So, uh, like, say a guy making 4 million gets traded, you have to eat that contract, and
Well,
to
if you
eat that
buy out, you get like
contract,
a half of the player's cap hit per year in
right? But you
penalty.
still have that's still a guy making 4 million a year is making, if you pay half of that, 2 million in the NHL gets you a solid piece,
Yeah.
and just eat that contract isn't feasible.
No.
So that's a difference in status.
Yeah. All right.
And speaking of the NHL,
Yeah. You want to take this one?
no, I want you to take this one. I just took all of basketball.
Uh yeah, anyway, so we have with the All-Star game what, like a month ago by now?
17 days.
20 days ago by now,
No,
basically.
17 exactly.
Oh god. Well, by the time this
After the
goes out.
skills competition, I wanted to record last week. I just forgot to text you.
Yeah. Anyway, so the 23 All-Star game is going to Florida, specifically Sunrise.
To Florida.
Yeah. And well, I don't know. It's it feels weird when you see hockey in a place with a bunch of sunshine and no snow.
Yeah, I mean, amongst other things, like, and we'll get into what we were actually planning on talking about with the All Star Weekend in itself. But yeah, it's always weird to push tourism to a place where tourism already is very prominent.
Yeah.
It is like
I mean,
the only thing about Sunrise, California, or see, I even said California. That's how little this makes sense. Sunrise, Florida is like
it
it is, I guess, a few miles away from the beach.
no, it's like almost next to it, but it's just above Miami. Like you're already next to the beach. You're already in a
Yeah, I don't know. The it's tough because I understand hockey has to go where the money is. Hockey has to go to where they can grow the game. But like this is the reason why you can't go to Columbus because even though they did, Columbus is small enough of a city to where it doesn't grow the game. But
yeah.
it does get those who are into sports to be engaged with the game. So on one hand, you sacrifice growing on a large scale to attract a concentrated area. The problem is where the large areas or large scale areas of potential audiences are is really where you can't grow the game. New York is already taken care of,
But I
LA is taken
like
care of,
the
Florida's
thing
taken
is,
care of.
I still think the NHL is in a weird spot where, like, yes, they have teams in these places, but they can totally still grow the game. They're not they're not fan saturated anywhere but Canada and maybe like Buffalo and like the northern U.S.
As closer to the Canadian border you are, the better off you. Um,
Yeah, like
which is
Minnesota
sad.
is probably saturated, and like if you put an NHL All Star game in LA, you probably can still grow the game, just not in the way you're expecting. Like, and obviously it won't be as much as Florida because like who in Florida watches these games, but there are so many people in LA or New York that if you're telling me you can't get new fans, you're just lying. I think.
Let me share with you a little personal anecdote that I think ties in here. We're both from New Jersey. Um, and when I moved down to North Carolina, and I would meet people, go on dates with women, whatever it was, and a lot of the dates that I would go on were northern transplants who also moved down to North Carolina. a lot of people will trade cold for warm.
Yeah.
And so the message here is the NHL cannot afford to go to warm weather climates and say, I know what the number one draw should be is to go to the place where it's coldest, and that'll bring the people.
But I'm not
They
saying to go
thrive.
to
I'm not.
Canada because I
No,
agree that
no.
you're.
I'm not saying that everything should be Pittsburgh and North. No, I'm not saying that at all. But what I'm saying is you have to find a way in. You have to find an appeal. Again, they use the dating metaphor. You have to find the love that the love triumphs the other locations. If you're in North Carolina and you want to live in New York City, but you're madly in love with somebody in North Carolina, you got to hope that that
Yeah, but
love for that
the
person
thing
will
is like, okay,
allow you to
well,
do both.
why Florida, right? The team is okay, not that good. Like, okay, if you made it Tampa, that's a difference, right? Tampa's doing good, it draws people. You could probably get like you're gonna see a lot of tourism come in with this and all that. But the like Florida, like Miami, like even if you chose North Carolina at that point. Like the team's doing so well, it's drawing people in. It had its Stadium Series game that definitely grew the game. It had like 56,000 people there or some ridiculous number.
At a college stadium, but yeah.
Yeah, but that's the point. Like I just don't necessarily agree with going to Miami. Not saying that you can't. You have to be in New York. I feel like you just choose. You can choose a better location. Not
So my go ahead.
not necessarily like Miami, Florida.
So my thinking is, and a lot, sports leagues are very competitive, but I think if they could pull it off, the smartest thing that they could do, and this is just off the top of my head, so it may not be the smartest thing overall, is hockey should be cross promoting through the channels of the media deals that they have.
Yeah, but they
Because
can't.
they should, if they could though, they should be cutting the tourism check part, because spending big money to go to a warmer climate doesn't mean anything. Host the All-Star game in a smaller city, and then you have ESPN and TNT, and you should, you know, what is the most befuddling thing here is ESPN, ABC, and TNT Turner have access to the number one biggest sport in the world in the NBA. And if they could so much as get the CGI graphics on the scorer's table at a basketball game, instead of saying next Wednesday night at 10:30 Jazz versus Nuggets, if they could instead promote a hockey game on ESPN 2 days from now instead of an NBA game 9 days from now, then that makes everybody win. It grows viewership for hockey. It grows viewership on ESPN, on Turner. It would do great things. And the NHL uses their monetary budget much more wisely, because all the people, if you get on Twitter and you look at Bleacher Report, every time Bleacher Report puts up something that's a hockey highlight compared to a basketball highlight, all the replies are filled with hockey's not a sport. Well, hockey's not being promoted as a sport. Hockey is being promoted as an extracurricular for when there's nothing else. So if hockey could promote themselves
But
just
this
as
is
much as the
a
NBA
but
and on
they
a different
can't.
platform.
But they can't because hockey is too localized in market, right? Like you have okay, and there's also that local TV thing going on where something is going on. I don't remember.
They're all bankrupt.
Yeah,
Valley
yeah.
Sports owns most of them, and they're bankrupt.
Yeah, yeah.
Make the check.
So this is okay. This is good and bad for if they can do the right thing with this, but the problem is the localization of the broadcast, right? The reason that NHL TV sucks also um, is everything is localized. That's why we still have so many blackouts and things cover certain areas, right? Once that like in order to truly grow the game, if you want ESPN to be able to advertise the next game, you gotta figure out how to get rid of blackouts, at least as egregious as they are right now.
Yes, but blackouts don't mean anything if people aren't watching anymore.
Yeah, but
But
the blackouts prevent people from like it's just not on NBC because it's blacked out. Like what?
it's true. But the other thing I will say is you speak of local networks. I will also say, out here in Pittsburgh is AT&T Sportsnet. Every intermission for a Penguins game is a commercial about Inside Pirates baseball. The local regional networks cross promote, and it's not just because they have the teams to do it. It's not because the Penguins, the same network that the Penguins on has the Pirates. It's because they grow their viewership if they promote both.
Yeah.
So that's what allows me to think if it works for regional, why wouldn't it work for national?
All right,
But
but I
ESPN has so much to offer between college basketball, pro basketball, all this other
it's in
shit that it's
so
like
many
it's so
things.
saturated that that's why I think one of the things that the NHL did good was getting with Turner and TNT because they're not oversaturated. They don't have a college basketball game on until March Madness. And even that is only 2 days a week until, and that only happens for like 3 weeks. They have the NBA for like a few days. And I'd say largely the ability to manifest because Turner has Bleacher Report to get the NHL with Bleacher Report and TNT has arguably in the last 10 years been the best thing that the NHL has done because and I talk about this Paul Bissonnette a lot when it comes to hockey, but what worked for inside the NBA was having actual personalities. Hockey also is a very quiet personality game. If you're not the fighter on the ice, even the fighters on the ice, off the ice, are the quietest people. Um, so inside the NBA had Charles Barkley and had Shaq, and thank God for Paul Bissonnette because that man's personality is single-handedly growing the game to some extent for it's able to do through the internet and media channels. But outside of that, there's not a lot of personality in hockey,
Yeah.
and you have to find a way to uh, really be able to market something outside of the game. Even ESPN's commercials are
Yeah, but ESPN
focused on the game.
ESPN like the problem with being on ESPN is okay, well, what are they going to promote, right? Okay,
Everything's
football,
on ice.
then NBA because it makes money, then literally like wrestling because it makes money, then whatever the hell. Like it's so saturated. Like you can't say that like having ESPN promote hockey will do anything.
True, and I will say, look, it's a catch-22 for the NHL to go back to ESPN because NBC Sports Network was folding. They absolutely had to. They needed a platform to distribute on a national stage, and like I said, with Turner and TNT, Turner has shown that they don't do a lot of basketball. They're kind of content with their arrangement, and so getting NHL once or twice a week probably wasn't enough. And ESPN did have a bigger streaming platform available for those who do want to subscribe to ESPN Plus, but
Yep.
ESPN
But then again, it
as a
also
as a
gets
family,
it also gets
ESPN
blacked out.
ESPN as a family of networks in an organization is not no longer in a space where they can afford to develop with the league. Um, in the 80s, 90s, early 2000s, ESPN was still growing to a point where it probably would have been a beneficial partnership. But ESPN understands that the NHL was the one who needed it most. And like, ESPN probably
We also
stands to lose.
we're also on a big tangent. You want to get back to what
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. We could go on this for like 3 hours.
All right, here we go.
Yeah, the skills competition. Like, anyway, let's conclude the thought though. Before hockey in Florida only does so much. It doesn't really sell out the stadiums where teams are already hosting. Um, so to put tourism there and attract all the people who didn't need the warmth because they're hockey people to begin with to a warm climate is just the most befuddling thing. We're not saying put it in a place like Pittsburgh where it makes sense because people like hockey here. But we're saying you gotta put the All-Star game in places where it makes sense. Everybody's very lucky that Vegas worked out because on paper it made zero sense to put a team in Vegas.
But
There's a
hey, it worked.
million other things to do. It worked because of, unfortunately, some tragic events that brought everything together.
Yeah.
But now, yes, it eventually turned out to be a success. Now, with that being said, let's transition. We do need to talk about the skills competition in All Star Weekend itself. Um, the All Star skills competition really changes every year, not always in the best way. I watched the whole show, so to speak. And we were talking about it.
Yeah.
Not a lot of continuity in ESPN's first shot at or second shot at no first shot at it
First.
because last year was Olympics.
Yep.
Um, the, what NBC networks had traditionally done very well was when they showed it, they went through an event. Boom, that event's done. We move on to the next one. Boom, it's done. ESPN decided to tease everything. We're going to start with the fastest skater. We're going to do the first two skaters of the opening round. Granted, there's 8 contestants. We're going to do the first 2 skaters. They're done. Okay, now we're going to do the first player of the breakaway challenge.
He's
It's
done.
done. Now we're going to go to the second 2 uh, skaters. Now we're going to go to the goalie challenge. Now we're going to go to the third 2 skaters. It's like, for the love of God,
Just have people running in a circle,
I
man.
don't I don't want the fastest skater to be the first and last thing I see. I guarantee the players have long since forgotten that it was even an event by the end of the night.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, you know, first of all, these are professional athletes, and the fact of the matter is they all have to prepare and warm up,
Yeah.
get loose. It's all part of their routine. Granted, it's a skills competition. They probably don't feel the need to, but it's part of their routine to warm up, stretch, stuff like that. And if you're even a casual watcher of the skills competition, they bring out extra benches on the ice because there's so many players for all the teams here, and everybody is sitting a long time.
Yeah.
So to say we're going to, draw this out as long as possible does not help, especially in cardiovascular exercises like this, like, sprint skating.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting way to go about things. And then the breakaway challenge, which was like, eh, the breakaway challenge is the NHL's dunk contest. But as limited as the dunk contest has become, it's way more limited in hockey
Yeah.
because there ain't no fucking dunking. And there's only so many ways to beat a goaltender. Like,
Yeah.
it essentially could have more options to it if there's no goaltender, but then it's not impressive because there's no goaltender and
Yeah.
anybody can score on an open net.
Yeah.
Um, but kudos to the players. They certainly try. But the other thing is,
I
you know,
mean, I think it's not just the skills competition, it's like the whole event. Like, how does the All Star weekend represent hockey in any way?
well, also I will say for the All Star Weekend, I do have to finish off and say whoever they attract for the judges panel, like the NBA, granted, again, very
It
different
makes,
standings.
yeah.
They have their who's who of whatever celebrities they fucking want. And they can choose. They can choose WNBA players. They can choose NBA players, current alumni. They could choose rappers. They could choose anything. The NHL has to choose not Grammy nominated, but Juno nominated. Lesser, like, granted, I'm not trying to take anything away from accomplished artists in Canada. Drake is Grammy nominated, but he's from Canada. So we're going to say here, even Canadian artists want Grammys and not Juno. So the lesser of that, you got two WWE guys who I swear to God, these guys could not promote their own agenda more. The
Yeah,
fact,
literally.
like, I don't know who the fuck these guys were because I don't watch the WWE. I think that shit's fake bullshit. And I don't give a shit if you like the fact that it's fake or not. I think the fact that the WWE making you pay $60 to watch a story is just fucking weird. So yeah, these guys are judges. So every time after a shot, what do you guys think? Well, I think that it takes some strength to be able to do that. The strength that me and this guy have, and you can catch that Friday night on WWE. Like, I literally could not give a shit. They couldn't give a shit. Hockey and NHL has to find people who give a shit. They did a good job in bringing in the female hockey players, the female pros, because they understood women love hockey too, and it's grown uh, both of them. But like, to bring in people who are only going to promote their own agenda is the dumbest thing you can do, especially in the case that he probably isn't a better standing than hockey. Not to mention they brought in a fucking women's tennis player, and every time ESPN was put the mic in front of her and was like, that took a lot of creativity on that shot. What would you do if you were on the ice and she was like, she couldn't play along if her life depended? If I was on ice, the
I
hell
would
do
just
you mean?
fall
Why would
over.
I be on ice? I just fall over. Like, could you fucking play along at all? Like, look, I have Asperger's. I have little creative energy, except for when it takes months to kind of think out an idea. And I was like, come on, like, I don't know, I do a loop de loop or some shit. Like, at least fucking, like, make some shit up. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I fall on my face. Cool. Not really the open mic answer I was looking for. So, like, yeah, if again,
I'd go for
we
that
talk
pirouette
about
on ice.
we talk about hockey needing personalities. They did bring in personalities for the WWE guys, not the right personalities, but like, you gotta bring in personalities who are actually going to boost the ratings and boost the game, not put the fucking game to sleep. Um,
I mean,
you know,
the actual All Star game does that enough for me.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, like, we'll touch on that in a second,
yeah.
but like, I will say the surfboard challenge that they had, the surfboard dunk tank, I thought that was creative. Whoever thought about that one did a decent job. You took hockey to the beach. That's exactly what you should be doing. Is saying this game can go anywhere, the ice. Like, that's absolutely
Yeah.
what you should have been doing. They should have done the whole skills competition. You're gonna be on what is it, rollerblades. We're going to do the fastest skater on rollerblades, and we're going to do it on the beach. Yes, that should have been done. Hardest shot. You could do the hardest shot anywhere. Why did you take everybody indoors? The rubber puck knows no wind resistance. Just fucking fire the thing. Do the Kramer shit. We're gonna put biodegradable pucks on targets in the ocean, and we're just gonna put buoys on them or something. Make the players hit the buoys.
Yeah.
The NHL lacks such originality that I just thought of 4 better ideas than they thought of with years of planning, and that was in 2 fucking minutes.
All right. Okay, let's get to the actual game.
You're gonna have to take this one.
All right. Well, anyway, so I don't know how much of the All-Star game you tuned into, but I basically tuned into
Zero.
the first game and turned it off halfway through. When the game is basically 3 people on the ice, just or 6 people on the ice, just dilly-dallying around, going back and forth. I feel like, okay, nobody's trying at all. Like, nobody has to try it. Like, don't get me wrong, it's an all-star game.
Well, I mean, after the NBA All-Star game last night, where it was literally just, a 5-on-5 and 4 players from each team were just diddling each other's,
Yeah,
jerseys. So, like, I will say, even if the NHL doesn't try, the element of the game alone makes it so that
but
it looks 1,000 times better than the NBA.
yeah, but my problem is like, okay, but does this even show the game to a new player or a new watcher, somebody trying to get into the game? Like, what does this show that the actual game has? This is
It
three on
shows
three
scoring.
overtime except sleeper.
Yes, but the idea behind it was to show scoring. The reasoning behind it was years
But
ago
the
when it
problem
went
is,
away from 5-on-5 was that if you play 5-on-5 like a normal hockey game, people are going to expect the same 3-2 energy that was the same of any other game. Granted, we know that the All-Star game is way different in terms of even the old 5-on-5 was like at least 7-5,
I'm
like
pretty sure it
which
was
for
like ten to
hockey,
seven most cases.
yeah, which for hockey was high scoring. But this one was supposed to do more because it was supposed to generate
Okay,
more odd man
they
opportunities.
did that, but it makes a slight mockery of the game. One of the teams didn't have a single defenseman.
Yeah, yeah, as we covered on this very show.
Yeah, and that's
Like,
like,
and that's fucking why. Granted, it's the less sexy position
yeah, but
of
it's the
defenseman and
Atlantic.
forward.
I can name 4 defensemen from the Boston Bruins that should have been on that team.
McAvoy for sure. Yeah. Um, but we do need to talk about the fact, we said 5-on-5 versus 3-on-3 and how that changed. And I think we're both in somewhat of an agreement that when the NHL went from 5-on-5 to 3-on-3, at that point in time, it was the right thing to do
Oh, yeah.
because it had gotten so stale. And as we've even seen with the NBA changed it up and did the draft thing and the captains thing, which the NHL had done in the late 2000s.
Yeah.
But even the thing about the NHL was, very much like the NBA. Like once you got 5-on-5, there's only so many ways
I
to play a
mean,
basketball game.
the
There's only so many ways to play a hockey game.
to be fair, like in terms of All Star games, like okay, MLB's All Star game, does it still matter, or did they take that away finally? Because it used to control who had home field in the
World Series.
World Series.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they took that away.
But like, okay, it was a reason to watch the game, and it still represents the game of baseball, right? In theory, you still have everybody playing their positions. Not 100%, obviously, it's a show, right? And it used to have some meaning. Not that most people cared for it, but it still represented the game fairly well. And the competitions they could do actually made sense, like the home run competition.
Yeah, but notice how they haven't deviated from the home run competition because they understand there's only so many different ways to hit a
Yeah.
baseball.
Yeah, but then like okay, then you have the NBA, right? Okay, their shooting competition makes sense. The dunk competition is literally just showmanship, and the actual All Star game makes like no sense.
Yeah,
And then
yeah, and in fact, they made the drafting of the teams even worse because the NBA commissioner decided we're going to draft all the reserves first and then the starters so nobody feels bad. And then literally had LeBron on stage as the final two players available are on the stage waiting to pick. And LeBron's going, hmm, literally making these guys feel invalidated.
yeah, I know,
Like, joke or not, he's stalling for effect.
I know. But okay, but like get back to my point, right? Like okay, so I think like in terms of All Star games, you have like the MLB, which has kind of figured it out, and then you have
Because they have nowhere else to go.
yeah, then you have the NBA, which at least their skills competitions make some sense.
Yes.
And then you have the NHL, which, okay, the only competition that makes sense is maybe fastest shooter, but like, not really. And then the accuracy one.
Yeah. Hardest shot used to be their dunk contest, basically, because it was the biggest wow factor one. But the thing is people have grown to understand you can only shoot a puck
So hard.
so hard
Yeah.
before there's a cap on it. Like you can keep breaking the record, but it's not like anybody is going to be able to anybody whose body is built to be an NHL player, not like a bodybuilder
Yeah.
or an extreme weightlifter, is going to be able to shoot above, and I'm going to say a bold number here, 115.
Yeah.
Like I'm giving myself like a 5 mile per hour buffer over the record
Yeah. It's like a
because
109 or
you
110.
need an element of technology or you need the equipment or something. You need something to give for that one to have a more variable
Yeah.
change.
But like, aside from that, like, fastest skater doesn't really matter, right? Like,
Again, there's only so many. How quick can you actually do it?
but
The
but it also
dimensions of the
doesn't
ice
mean
stay the
anything,
same.
right? Like the way you skate in a hockey game is not how you skate for fastest
Yeah,
skater.
but the NBA skills challenge where they throw a chest pass through a hoop from 30 feet away doesn't exactly mean anything either. So, like,
And,
the NBA has their challenges that have zero meaning too. And granted, the dunk contest and the 3-point shootout will always mean more than that. Um, but the NBA still toys around with stuff that has zero meaning too.
yeah, but
But
then you get to
there's
the
volatility
yeah, but then you get to the actual game. Like, okay, at least in the NBA they play five players on the field, even though they kind of twiddle their thumbs, right? Then
there. Yeah, in the All-Star game. Yeah.
you look at the NHL. Okay, you have two goalies out at a time. Like they play for like 10 minutes, and it's literally just like a snooze fest. They're going around, they shoot. The goalie doesn't try to save, and keep going.
Yeah, and the goalies are at an impasse here because the goalies want it to be their time too, but they understand that nobody's watching for a shutout.
Yeah,
So they have to play subpar,
yeah,
even though their game is not to be.
yeah.
So it
And
makes a mockery of
it's
their position.
different. Like when you look at the NBA, like okay, you have to play subpar defense, but like who over there is not already playing subpar defense?
Right. That's what the NBA is now. Everything is subpar defense. Like the number one team in the NBA defensively gives up 95 a game. And when we were children, and I'm not to
I'm pretty
not to
sure it was
be
like
old man,
78.
yeah, not to be old man stares at ceiling or at clouds or whatever, or yells at children, but like yeah, it was like a solid 15-20 point difference in terms of what elite defense is. Like
Yeah,
if you see an NBA game where where both teams haven't scored above 100 today's day
you're
and age,
witnessing some
that's considered
apocalypse.
struggling shooting.
You're witnessing an
So like,
apocalypse, in my opinion. If you see a game where both teams haven't eclipsed 100, something is wrong.
well, I'd say at least one team.
At
Uh,
least one team has to eclipse 100, and now nothing's wrong.
I was looking at Google. A Cavs Suns game like 10 months ago was like 95-87. I was like, what the fuck? Is that even possible anymore?
I don't know.
Apparently it is. But yeah, like I don't know. We're talking All
Yeah,
Star
but
weekends overall.
then okay, then you have like the NFL All Star Pro Bowl, which nobody cares about. So like they are actually
Yeah,
the
they,
worst.
they've literally given up on that, which
Yeah,
was the right move. Like
yeah,
it was better when it was after the Super Bowl because like it was for football fans to be able to hold on to something and not have to give up on football yet. Ever since they changed that and put it above the Super Bowl and basically took everybody out of it, nobody gives a shit.
yep,
Players don't care. There's nothing inspiring about being. Also, the fact they took it out of Hawaii, which is like, you know, the players could go to Hawaii anytime they fucking wanted anyway.
yeah.
But to be paid to be in Hawaii, that's a completely different story. But like nobody was going to give a shit about it before the Super.
Yeah. So I don't know. I really think that something has to change with the whole All Star Weekend, All Star Game kind of thing. But it's not my place, so we're gonna
Yeah.
continue.
Well, no. The other thing we have to address is where does the All Star game for the NHL go from here? Because I think we've kind of exhausted in our conversation here. For any sport, there's only so many ways to actually hold an All Star game, and I think for the first couple of years, this tournament style 3-on-3 was kind of cool. But in terms of seeing the best players on the biggest stage all at once, it's truly eliminated that. The appeal on a 5-on-5 is that you legitimately will see McDavid and Crosby go at it, for 20 minutes a game.
Yeah.
Whereas, you know, right now in its current format, McDavid and Crosby only meet for those 20 minutes if the 40 minutes beforehand actually break down to allow it.
Yeah. And
It's
it's
like,
kind of like you tune in, right? And you're like, I want to see Ovechkin and Crosby, let's say. And then they lose in 20 minutes. Like, okay, well, you just
yeah,
literally
what do
just
you do with that's the first game of the day. What do I do with, my
yeah.
hopes for the next 2 hours?
Yeah, like it's a fundamental flaw in the way that they've laid it out.
Yeah, it is. But it's like, I understand changing it up, but like I don't understand how they keep it fresh. I really that's where I run
Yeah.
out of ideas. All-star games only unless they're gonna do something Pro Bowl like and just replace the game with different events that are just completely not hockey related, it makes no sense. You know,
Fair.
and maybe they incentivize it and like they used to do the hockey sauce kit toss as part of one of the skills competition things. Maybe they hang a sauce kit thing top shelf corner on one of the nets, and if in the All Star game somebody hits it, uh, even with a goaltender in front of it, it counts for 4 points. If they add trickery into the game, it has potential to at least have some Sports Center top 10 plays in it. Like the game as it is only really has two or three options. Also, the
True.
fact they got to bring back the puck track. Like
Yeah.
NBC toyed with it for a hot second, but like older
I mean,
demographics
also, I think in the All Star
really
game,
need that.
you should have a puck tracker. Like, the
You
game
have it
is
for every game.
huh? Okay, well,
For
at least get it right. Dirt, like, it's the perfect time to put a puck tracker in because the game is
true. You have
slower.
less people moving the
There's
puck
less
too.
people moving. The game is slower, so you're not gonna have that hard shots. You're not gonna have fast, crisp passes. None of that. It's the perfect time to iron out that thing so that it's actually usable in the real scenario. Because I do agree that like when NBC tried it the first time, it wasn't perfect.
It wasn't perfect, but like
And it was slightly
it was pretty
distracting.
damn good.
No.
Well, that
Like
was pretty damn good. Like no, and look, I'm not going to name which family members, but for me, I did have family members who I was watching it with saying that it helped them a lot.
Fair. I,
And again, we're talking engagement overall above anything else. We're talking engagement and attracting different demographics and fan bases and stuff like that. You need the ability to draw in older demographics.
I don't
Because
know. I think you can
I
take it two
understand that
ways,
old
right?
heads love
You can
hockey, but like,
you can take it two ways. Like you can try and draw in the older demographic, or you can just try to go all in and try to draw in the
well, then
younger
there,
demographic. Like,
well, you do that too because the ADHD and the fact that scientifically speaking, everybody's attention span is shorter right now, and the best way to attract attention to somebody with a short attention span is with bright colors. Um, yeah, you put a neon orange line on the ice, bright colors. People will
yeah,
fuck with
but
that.
the problem is they can't
Only for so
alienate their
long.
current fan base, right? Like, okay, if I had to watch a bright orange puck, I would literally just turn the TV off. Like,
No, not the puck. The line that follows the puck.
yeah, yeah. Okay, if I had to watch that, I'm turning the TV off, man. Like, I want a way to turn it off.
I don't know. I think that
You
that's
the problem is they won't do it because they don't want to alienate their current fan base. Like,
okay, but like at some point, technology has caught up with every other sports league except for baseball, which it'll never
oh
catch up with them.
man,
But
baseball.
at some point, you have to let technology in to be successful.
No, I'm not saying that like it's not a worthy investment. I'm just saying like if they force it on me, I would rather just not watch. Or like if it's like so out there. Like the colors on a hockey rink are there and they're static, like the red line, the blue line, the trapezoid is red, like all these things are there. Now if they introduce another color, and in your case if it's bright orange, like I think it's gonna clash too much. I haven't seen it, but like,
And yet, overseas and on hockey rinks are literally just littered with advertisements. And those teams have not gone under for what reason?
I mean, like the point is that if you have an orange, like I'm just saying, it's a line that's just following the puck, right?
And I'm just saying this static thing isn't stopping teams
Yeah, but I mean
from,
that's a.
in
I'm
different
trying
countries
to
from being
like,
successful.
but I'm trying to look at the ice and follow the puck and the players, right? I just think
And they're not doing that overseas.
so. I mean, like, okay, ads is a different thing. Ads is also making the money. This is just a tracker.
It's still colors.
But like, my
It's still
point
colors.
is,
People will fuck with an ice surface that's tons of colors, and not just a
yeah, but
McDonald's
the
ad
the
and a
point
Burger
is
King
they're
ad.
making like okay, how does a tracker make them money except for me viewing it, right? And getting more people to view it, right? An ad is paid for, okay? Like they're completely different.
We have to move on from this because
Yes.
the rabbit holes are just too much.
Yeah, but like the point is that like if it only improves, if it only statistically may improve the experience without really feasibly making them money unless it's widely liked, they're gonna do it less than something that somebody is paying for and they're also showing you.
All I'm saying is they eventually have to move from their current base to trying to add more.
Yeah,
I'm
no,
not
I
saying that the
but I
puck
don't
tracker
disagree. I'm
is
just saying like
it,
the
but
current iteration of it and they actually have to think of how to put it in, right? They can't just go slap it on again. Cuz you know that they
again,
will do things wrong.
I'm not saying it has to be the puck tracker. But I'm saying eventually you have to start figuring out how to add to what you already have in terms of a fan base and you know the NBA had China. The NBA had the ability to grow the game internationally when it wasn't originally that.
Hmm.
Hockey already is an international game.
Yeah.
So at some point you have to open the door for something else to come in to grow the game in a way that you're not initially comfortable with. Again, it doesn't have to be the puck tracker, but it has to be something.
Yeah. But
Maybe it's allowing players to have personality.
yeah. I mean, that's different also. But like if we're talking about
It's
letting
different, but it's the same.
technology, like there is sooner going to be advertisements on the ice because they would be paid for by companies than there is a puck tracker. That's all I was saying.
Unless the puck tracker in itself is sponsored by somebody,
Yeah,
which it could be. There's a million different ways to broadcast an advertisement.
true. Just like jerseys. But all right, on to the trades. So we have one here. I do want to talk about the other one the Rangers made quickly. Yeah,
Turn that ambulance down, by the way.
yeah. It's an ambulance behind me. What am I gonna do about it?
You can do the New York thing. You can flip them off, but karma's a bitch.
Anyway, so the Rangers acquired Vladimir Tarasenko and some other player for Sammy Blais, Hunter Skinner, conditional first round pick in 23 and a conditional fourth round pick in 24. Yeah, I mean, I think this is amazing for the Rangers, and I hate it, and you probably hate it too, but that's because we're Metro team fans.
Honestly, don't give a shit. I think like
Hey, the Penguins are still
Rangers
technically
operate
in the
better.
playoffs.
Well, no, the Rangers operate better when the pieces that they bring in are veteran leaders on teams where they don't necessarily have leadership. And when I look at
True.
what the Rangers are, I see they're a very talented team that does not have leadership. When they brought in Martin St. Louis, that brought in leadership. What doesn't bring in leadership, but brings in more talent, is Vladimir Tarasenko. Vladimir Tarasenko has actively been anti-leadership.
Yeah.
Because statistically, the past few years have been horrible for him. Let's not forget the fact that this guy was a perennial all-star when he was younger, and he's still not very old of a player. This year, he's an all-star again for the first time in like 7 years. Like he fell off a fucking cliff, and he was right. What was it, Ryan O'Reilly who was the captain when they won the cup?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay. It was either that or I know Maroon was at
No.
least had to be wearing an A.
Yeah, he was A.
So yeah, Tarasenko is not really a
But
leadership
I
guy.
don't think they actually need that. Like they were actually missing scoring, which is weird to say. They had okay, if you look at their last
No,
5
that makes sense.
games, the only person on that sheet is Panarin.
Yeah, but that's what they're paying Panarin top dollar to be is the score.
But
So
it's
like
the
here's the
okay,
other side of it
most
is at least he's doing his job.
yeah, but it's most goals, most assists, most points in the last 5 games, all Panarin.
Well, let's also not forget that Capo Caca and
Alexis
Alex
Lafreniere.
both turned out to just be
Ah,
monumental busts
I think
in
it's a
terms of what they
problem
were
with the
supposed to be.
Rangers development staff more than
Well,
those two
yeah, because they
players.
also fucked up Jimmy Vesey.
Yeah.
And so it's like, how many highly touted guys have to come in and be generational talents? Because that's what Lafreniere was supposed to be. That was the appeal behind the bubble and playoff teams having a chance at being number one overall. Was like, when is it ever going to be that a playoff team or like any playoff team has a chance at a generational talent like this? That was the appeal. And Lafreniere has been extremely pedestrian, if not,
Yeah.
um,
But like if you
not
see
on the same level as BC, but
like the talent like I don't see any talent or at least like the talent that the Rangers try to bring up just doesn't exist. They go somewhere else and they're better.
yeah, I
But
mean,
the Rangers have a
it
development
rarely,
problem.
they do because, I mean, historically speaking, they have undrafted guys who do better than guys that they take. Mark Stahl,
Yeah.
Girardi.
Yeah. I mean,
I
I
mean,
don't
like,
disagree with you, but I'm saying that that is a problem with their pipeline then. Like,
I understand. I'm just saying it takes a guy with a motor in himself that isn't being tapped into. There's a guy who wants it badly enough to do it himself and figure it out with connections he has instead of
but
relying on the
that
team
also
to do it
points,
for him.
but it's not even that. It's also like, how are they trying to use these players? Like,
Not in the right way.
exactly.
They want them all to be superstars. But the thing is, regardless of the sport, you can't have all superstars. Somebody has to
Right.
take a
But also,
role.
like, you have to, like, especially when you're developing these players, like, they are not immediate superstars. Like, you have to deploy them, especially if you're keeping them
Right
in the
way.
NHL, in the right way.
I think there's this expectation that because McDavid and Crosby and McKinnon and
Matthews.
actually no, I won't even say McKinnon because McKinnon kind of had to grow too.
Yeah,
But
but
yeah,
like
Matthews
if
and
you
Ovechkin,
the two
all
most
these
recent
number
examples
one,
is McDavid
yeah,
and Matthews, I think.
yeah, but like there's because people see the number one picks in the past 20 years
Yeah, but you
have
also have picks
have
like Nugent
zero,
Hopkins, like
right, like there's this expectation in the NHL for not necessarily fans. I mean, yes, fans, but more so front offices that the number one pick is the key to success. I mean, how often are we hearing about tanking for Bedard right now? And it's like, you know, there wasn't necessarily tanking for Lafreniere, but like the fact of the matter is that Bedard, anybody can end up extremely pedestrian, just like Lafreniere or any of these other guys.
yeah, but like it's also how you use them, right? Because like I brought up Nugent Hopkins, right? He also went to the Oilers or won first overall or something, right? You have Hall, who was a
They
first
use
overall draft pick. These players take time. Like Nugent Hopkins is a good player now, but like he didn't just come and take the Oilers by storm.
I think you have somewhere between a 15 and 20% chance of a number one overall pick who is adequately hyped up, mind you. I'm eliminating weak draft classes here. I'm saying when there's a bona fide, understood number one overall pick. Like everybody knew Lafreniere was going to be number one.
Yeah.
I'd say there's still a 15 to 20% chance that that player enters the league being able to be not even a superstar, but a borderline
I
star and
think
potential franchise player.
I think
Eventually, you have to grow
that
into.
it's higher if you spend his first year as a development year, even if you keep him in the NHL.
You mean
Like,
the AHL?
huh?
You mean the AHL or NHL?
Can keep if you keep him in the NHL, you need to not treat the first overall pick as a superstar until you've given him 1 year, just trying to figure out where he is by deploying him in the right scenarios.
Yeah, and I will say in terms of marketing, that's something where NHL teams who are very bad are grasping at straws in inordinate amounts of time. Is when they have a number one overall pick, they try to sell that number one overall pick player so hard,
Yeah, but you
probably
can
to a
do it in
much
other
higher
ways
level.
now. Like they you like have interviews with the damn guy, like give him a personality, right? Stop talking to a cardboard box. Like
Yeah,
it's or when he's on the ice, hype him up, but don't like put him on the ice for 20 minutes because you're literally just gonna kill him.
yeah.
And don't
Honestly,
like if it's a center, don't make him face off against like the best centers in the league. Like, are you kidding me?
yeah. I will say, with the exception of Ovechkin and McKinnon, some of these other guys, a lot of the ones that kind of panned out are for franchises that, historically speaking, have such a high barometer of success individually to live up to. McDavid had Gretzky,
Yeah, but I
Crosby had
mean,
Lemieux,
Edmonton
Matthews
has a
had
problem.
literally anybody else.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, you're on a pedestal where if with some of those organizations where it's like, well, you were the top hyped guy since Lemieux, you better fucking be anywhere near as good as him.
Hmm.
You
But you're also
McDavid
in
told
like
his friends,
markets that care more. I think. I guess like
New York should care.
yeah, but they're behind the Knicks, right? Like
No, I mean
fair.
yes, but like they're owned by the same people.
Yeah.
Like in terms of like Madison Square Garden is a venue that is so revered that it should sell out regardless.
Yeah. Tickets are
So,
expensive. Yeah.
but yeah, I don't know. I think
Yeah.
with
But
all the
I
money
mean,
that the
okay,
Rangers.
back to the point, right? Like
This is also a Knicks thing because the Rangers and Knicks both being owned by James Dolan, neither one of those teams can fucking develop talent.
yeah.
This
Yeah,
might
but
be a
anyway,
James
back to the
Dolan
point. So
thing.
the Rangers picked up Tarasenko. I actually don't think they gave up too much.
Uh, First round pick for a guy who was an all star
Conditional. It
in
can
7 years.
it's a conditional first round pick, so
That's great. Uh,
because I mean they're still a bubble team at the end of the day, but they're probably going to be third in the.
if I don't remember what the condition was, but it's not a hard condition to
No,
read.
it's not. But it's still like I think like what next this coming first round pick is it's fine. Like okay, whatever. And a fourth round pick. Okay, sure. I mean, you can get some gems in the fourth round, but still, take it. um, and then they picked up Tyler Mott from the Ottawa Senators for another prospect that they basically gave up on, and a seventh round pick. I think they actually got a steal. So I actually think they strengthened their team, and again, they're third in the Metro, so and it doesn't look like they're giving that up because there's a 10-point gap right now between third in the Metro and the wild card.
Um, yeah, I found the condition for the
Okay.
first round pick. Since New York owns both their own first round pick as well as the first round pick of the Dallas Stars, um, the Blues will receive the latter of the two picks that the Rangers have. But if the Stars pick is in the top 10, the pick shifts to a 2024 first rounder, and St. Louis will receive the later of those two. Oh, okay, so yeah, the Rangers fucking fleeced them.
The Rangers gave up nothing.
The Rangers fucking fleeced them. Literally, the Blues agreed to a trade that said basically if your first round pick is more promising for you, you get to keep it. It was like, no, the condition should have been regardless. It should have been
Uh,
like, yeah, if you own picks number like 9 and 17, you then you
I
get
thought the
both 9 and
condition
17. It's like you get the later of them anyway.
I
Just
thought
take
the
the
condition was like
17.
if the Rangers get like to the second round of the playoffs, they forfeit the earlier one. But then you just kept
That
reading, and
was
I was
not
like, no, this is bad.
no, the condition of the fourth round pick is that it becomes a third rounder if the Rangers make the playoffs.
Okay,
It's
so
not
it's a third rounder.
that's
They're making
why.
the
Yeah,
playoffs. There's no doubt.
that's
There's no
why.
doubt.
Yeah.
The
Which third round picks can do something, but not a lot.
Yeah, but
But
actually, third round picks are kind of like third
they're
rounders
overused
can make
in
the
the end.
NHL quite regularly.
Yes. All right. So we've established that New York, the trade.
Yeah. So,
Mostly, for me, mostly because the Blues just don't know how to do a pick swap.
dude, that
The
is
fact that
so
you would be like,
bad.
the fact that you would be like, well, if both of your picks are in the top 10, then we don't want either of them is just absolutely fucking stupid.
Uh,
What GM fucking does that? Like, you're the one who's getting rid of the star player.
yeah, and okay. Also, like it makes it weird because, like, okay, well, you still have Patrick Kane on the trade block. You still have Timo Meyer on the trade block.
Yeah, and I guarantee you that the Rangers would be fine with moving on from one of those picks, one of those first round picks.
Well, I mean, like the
They still
point
go.
the point is that like okay, well, I don't think the Rangers are. I don't even know if they can make another move, but like at least for Timo Meyer, you have like the Jets, you have the Devils, and you have like two or three other teams.
We've established before the show that the Sabres have the most money to play with.
Yeah, but they're also the most fringe.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're
So,
currently out of a
playoff
spot. I think.
they're currently number 20 in the NHL overall, and yes, they're out of a spot because for whatever reason the Penguins are still clinging onto the depth.
Yeah, but that's just because the Atlantic is top heavy.
Yeah,
I mean, the Metro is also top heavy. You have the freaking Carolina Hurricanes, Devils, and Rangers all above 75 points or something, and then you have the
yeah, but those are all
Penguins
young
at
teams.
63 or something.
Yeah, and then you have the Capitals like right behind.
Yeah, at 62 or 3. And the.
Just old men walking with canes.
Yep.
So yeah. Anyway,
Yeah. That's the update for those. Maybe next episode we'll
holy
talk
shit.
some more NHL action with trades and stuff.
Holy shit, did we make that episode last? I did not think we had an hour and 30 minutes in this,
Yep.
but that was a good one. And like when we actually hit like real talking points, even though like 90% of the time, it's mostly just us bitching about how the NHL can't throw the fucking game.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time.